recovery in the Heartland, sweet spot or sour patch will be moderated by Mr. Rajesh Punjabi, founder, Hotel Specialists Asia, co-founder, the Bombay Jazz Club. He will be joined on stage by Mr. Aryavir Kumar, managing director, the Clark's Hotels and Resorts, Mr. Mansoor Adil, senior executive vice president, Sarovar Hotels and Resorts, Mr. Nikhil Sharma, regional director, Eurasia, Wyndham Hotels and Resorts, and Mr. Suhail Kannampilly, chief executive officer, the Fern Hotels and Resorts.
Welcome everyone to this afternoon session. We thought we'd start by just giving you a little bit of a flavor of what the title was about, because we were debating that ourselves for a bit, and we had some interesting discussions with the Hotelivate team as well. So the name of our band is the Heartland Hotels, we'd like to call ourselves, and really the Heartland sort of denotes the mid-market space that these very established brands and companies operate in. So we're going to have a conversation, and we hope you'll join us in that conversation about whether the recovery in this space has been, so to say, good, sweet spot, or sour patch. So, or maybe something in between, who knows, we'll see where it goes. So gentlemen, you want to take a moment just to maybe set the stage and just draw out what your businesses are about briefly, in terms of where you operate, how many hotels you have. That would be helpful.
Yeah, so I can start. So I'm Aryavir, look after the Clark's Hotels and Resorts. We have about 65 operational hotels across 6 brands, ranging from economy hotels to mid-scale hotels to luxury hotels, operating from 2,000 rupees a night to 70,000 rupees a night in our luxury brand, which is called Bridge Hotels. We have a large presence in the Tier 2 and the Tier 3 market, and because we feel that there's enormous potential there, we're spending a lot of our time and resources in that segment, and yeah, that's about it.
Hi, I'm Mansoor Adil. I'm with Sarovar Hotels, a bit of a veteran in the company. Sarovar, as some of you may know, operates about 97 hotels, and we are truly, I think, a multi-brand company. There are Sarovar's own brands, there are some Radisson brands, and last 5 years after our association with the Louvre Hotels, some of the Golden Tulips, the Tulipins, and the Royal Tulips are also a part of it. As of today, as we stand, we're at 97 properties. And of this, the largest segment, about 60% of these hotels are existing in Tier B and C cities, while we have a significant presence in the main metros. But B and C tier has been integral to our association, perhaps from the inception stage. We are hearing more of B and C tier now, but earlier our presence continues on from there. And going forward, that's something that we continue to be associated with, and people who are in our segment will remain focused on the segment that we are in currently.
Thanks, Mansoor. Hi, my name's Nikhil. I work with Wyndham Hotels and Resorts. Before I get into what Wyndham does, one of the things this panel has decided is try and not use the word pandemic or unprecedented. So that's our endeavor in the next 50 minutes. Wyndham Hotels and Resorts is 9,000 hotels in 96 countries globally. In India, we have now 50 operating assets, a very healthy pipeline in 36 destinations, and couldn't be more proud of what we are doing at the moment. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Suhail Kannampilly. I work with Concept Hospitality. We manage hotels under 3 different brands. That's the Fern, Beacon, and Zinc is a new brand that we're also bringing into the market right now. We've got about 88 hotels that are in operation right now. Primarily, a lot of the hotels, about 50% of the portfolio sits on the west coast of India. We also have 30% in the leisure segment, 30% of our portfolio sits in Tier 2, Tier 3 cities, and the balance are corporate-dominated major metro cities. Thanks.
Great, gentlemen. So let's talk a little bit about operating models, right? Because obviously the flavor is very much asset light. Everyone's going asset light. How do you guys mostly operate? Is everybody in the in the managed segment. Of course, Nikhil, you're purely in the franchise segment, very close to my heart. We'll talk about that, in some detail. But any owned hotels over here, leased hotels over here?
So, we've been in this industry for 75 years now, where my great-grandfather kind of pioneered the luxury hospitality industry with Clark's. So we own hotels, we manage hotels, we lease hotels, we have hotels on revenue share, but the majority of the portfolio is on the management front. So yeah.
Sarovar has, I think, been a pioneer as far as the asset light is concerned amongst the Indian companies since inception. That's the model we started off with. And in the mid-segment market space, and that's where we grew from. Of course, over this journey of growth, they got hotels that were in the luxury segment, much larger number of key inventory hotels came across in. But primarily, that's the space that we operated on, and on the asset-light model. We continue as we go forward to remain with the asset-light. We have a few properties that are owned with us, but that's a very small number that is there. Going forward with our association with the Louvre Hotels, who have been very typically been working on a franchising model, at least now in India, franchising will also become very dominant because the Louvre brand, the Golden Tulip, Tulipin, and Royal Tulip brands will grow, and they very much largely work on the franchise bit. It also, within our own brands, we will continue across on to have management as integral engagement because that's what the brand has always been known for. It has stood, and that's the largest part of our portfolio, including the Radisson Park Plazas and the Parkins that are within our fold. They are managed properties across with the Radisson brand, and that asset-light model is going to continue even as we go forward as a company. But yes, our own assets also. We are currently in the process of developing a hotel in Chennai, which is an owned hotel. We have 2 other hotels that are there. But asset light is the mantra for us for the future also.
Suhail, you're purely managed, right?
Actually, interestingly, we started this company back in 1996. At that time, we were a pure white label management company. So just pure management, you put your name on it, we would operate it for you.
You were a third-party manager.
Third-party management company. And then in 2009, we decided to launch a brand. So the brand is relatively new, it's just 12 years old. And all the hotels up till last year were under management. Last year, we've pivoted and started revenue share. So we've got 2 hotels now that are under revenue share. And we also decided to get into the asset-heavy segment. So we did acquire 1 hotel as well, which is still to open.
Right. So talk about third-party managing a little bit, right? I mean, is that something that you guys, think you would do as an extension of where you're at? You all have your own brands. I know that, Mansoor, you started off as a third-party manager in many ways, right? Is that an area that you think is something that your groups can explore?
I missed part of your question.
The third-party management model kind of thing, which we don't see much of in India.
Yeah,
there have been people, coming in trying to do it. It's been challenging for different reasons. So,
yeah, third-party management in India was not the norm. A couple of companies did come in at the inceptional stage. Unfortunately, I don't think it was too successful at that stage. Internationally, third-party, as you all know, is very much the way a lot of businesses are done. For us going into the third party, it's a little unlikely because we have a spectrum of brands and across all kinds of hotels which go from the 5D to the 5 to the 4 to the 3 upscale. So given that it is there, the hotels were of course were supposed to be actually very cookie cutter 3-star limited service hotels, but they also, the way the business has been perceived in India, have actually become like full service 3.5, 4-star hotels. And that's really where there's a wide spectrum. Now we also have the Louvre brands with us. So there's a wide ranging brands that are available to us, and we will continue to brand and manage. And wherever there's a limited opportunity only of franchising within that space.
Anyone, Aryavir?
Yeah, I think the third-party management space is very interesting, especially in India, because let's say for an international brand, if they want to come in and they want to, let's say, go into the roots of tier 3, tier 4 markets, it's important to have a partner who kind of understands that space and who's been operating in that space for many, many years. That's number one. Number two, I've come across a lot of people who want to just have their own brand. within that hotel. So let's say 2 weeks ago, I signed a hotel, which is a friend's hotel. He said that, no, I do not want the Clarks brand. I just want my own brand. So I said, okay, you know what, I'll manage it for you. And
do you think there's scope to grow that, though? Is that what
yeah,
a one-off because it was a friend's hotel?
Hospitality is growing phenomenally, and a lot of young entrepreneurs want to get into this space and build their own hotel, but they need back-end support of sales, marketing, branding, SOPs, and distribution. So that's where we can come in. Yeah.
Great. I'm going to shine the spotlight on Nikhil a little bit and talk about everyone's favorite topic, which is franchising. I think it's been talked to death, maybe. But, you know, why not? Once more, right?
Thank you, Rajesh.
Tell us a little bit about your experience. And, you know, I mean, it's very close to my heart. You know, in my previous avatar, I made sure that I sowed some seeds for franchising because, you know, it clearly has to feature in any kind of scalable model, in my view. So please share with us some more.
So Wyndham has 22 brands, right? And Wyndham's growth to the largest franchisee has been through acquisition, and it's a 16-year-old company. So 18 of the 22 brands have actually been bought, and with it came a lot of models, third party being one of them. So for example, my boss, Dimitri, is in the audience, and I can see the light shining on his head. and he works with Aimbridge. Aimbridge is one of the largest third-party operators globally, right? And when we looked at the India strategy with Panos, who's the head of development for this area, with Govind and Dimitri and Rahul, who heads commercial, we decided the DNA of the organization is franchise. The market is still very managed-driven. What is it that we can do to cater to that need? And that's when we started scouting for good third-party operators in the country. And you know, a wise man said, if not now, then when? And I think in the last 2 years, what we've been able to achieve with good hotel executives who are now set up their own shop and are out there are good third-party operators. Of course, large-scale operators need much more scale. I think India is now ready to look at that, of course. And we said we're not going to use the word pandemic, but I'm going to use it this time because...
Just once.
Just once. Because a lot of owners who are going down the management route, at least to us, came back and said that, you know, I've been paying an XYZ fee. Tell me, how do I franchise? Because at the end of the day, it's still my money and I'm still paying for it, right? But is there a possibility of me not running the day-to-day business? And that's where the third-party operators are coming in. So we run an extremely successful third-party operator at the moment that we're working with, Hawthorne Suites in Dwarka, Aramada Encore in Udaipur, for example, our third-party operated manager, and I can go on. But I think the time for franchise and third-party management, of course, professionally run managers, is now.
Right, we're definitely seeing more traction in that area than we have before. And even some of the, if I can call them the big box brands, so to say, have been less shy of doing it recently. So that's great to see. Let's touch on some sensitive issues, right? I mean, what do you guys have to say about the perception that's often out there about smaller box hotels or hotels that don't have what some may call a critical size, maybe 120, 130, 140 rooms, facing challenges with simple economics, return on investments, both for owners, bang for the buck for you guys when you manage, versus the effort that it takes to do all of that. The floor is open, so.
Suhail, you want to go first?
Yeah, Suhail,
sure.
what about you?
In terms of a return on investment, I think the mid-scale hotels have shown in the last couple of years, and even prior to that, that they offer the best return on investment in the industry, in India at least. Okay, we've got a property that was put up on a leased plot of land in Daman, which actually had a total investment of about 6 crores. That property is doing an annual turnover of 8 crores with a profit of 4 crores, and this is just the second year of operation. So what's your return on investment? It's phenomenal. And no luxury hotel could match that. So I definitely think it's not about the scale, it's about getting the right property, the right size, the right amount of investment in the right location.
So what in your mind would be that right size? What's the sweet spot for a number of a property that needs to have a certain number of keys to make sense.
Yeah. So the right size is completely dependent on the location. If you're sitting in a city like Bombay, you can put 1,000 rooms, it'll still fill. You put 1,000 rooms in a tier 3 city, maybe a Belgaum, you're going to sit on a 10% occupancy. So it has to be based on the location. Right? But surprisingly, I mean, when we talk of tier 2, tier 3 cities, our Belgaum property was the highest revenue generator for the group during the pandemic. I mean, outclassing Bombay as a city.
Okay, that's good to know.
I second that because let's say in a lot of the tier 2, tier 3 markets we operate, we're the only organized hotel company there. So that is the only option. So if the hotel is full, you will be getting a good return on investment, and if it's not full, you won't. So let's say if you're the only operator there, I mean, your hotel is going to do well, no matter the size.
What about other challenges like, above property costs? Sometimes, those get to be, should I say, heavy, and then, it starts to question the overall business premise or model. How do you guys manage that?
Are you referring to big boxes?
No, I'm just talking about sometimes when you have hotels that are limited size, right? And you have very heavy above property or centralized costs that sit not at the property level but at the corporate level. Does that in any way have a burden? Does that a burden on
from
on
an
the
operator's
business?
perspective, I'll answer that for you because, and more so out of experience, because I don't think one shoe fits all. Everywhere the parameters may differ. Suhail, of course, very aptly did mention both in terms of size and in terms of returns that it's not so much to do, it could be city specific and it could be the ADRs that you may be drawing on the city, which makes a lot of difference because, you could have a single hotel presence in a city which can draw you a very large amount of ADR. I'll give you an example. We have a hotel that we operate in Gorakhpur. Now, at the time when we opened Gorakhpur, everybody would say, Gorakhpur is like the back of beyond, somewhere going to UP, Dehat area, which is there. But from the moment it opened, and people's lifestyles in these B and C cities have changed, so you're getting decent occupancies, and you're getting decent ADRs, and consequently, great, phenomenal bottom lines. The little advantage across with medium-sized hotels is that your costs are more rationalized. And one of the largest component of cost is manpower. So the kind of people who work there, you're not paying them top dollar to be in there. And there is talent. Of course, we've had this little bit of a problem because of all these years on manpower currently. But your manpower costs in the expectation of the manpower in B and C cities is a little lesser as what there are in bigger cities. And you can work with a smaller force of people. Keeps your costs low. And if you ask, I think working, other than the challenge of finding the right people to go there, working in B and C tier cities is much easier and is much more fun. And with the ticket size of 70 to 80 keys.
I second that as well because a lot of our tier 2, tier 3 cities, we don't have a general manager in the unit. If it's a small unit, it's just a resident manager who's capable of performing different duties of, let's say, maybe he has an F&B background or a sales background, so he can look into sales, he or she could look into F&B. So you find a person who's extremely agile to kind of look after a small hotel.
Now you mentioned that, you're also sensitive to the cost issue, etc. And it was a really interesting session not too long ago about who ate our talent, and I was, able to tune into a part of that over there. But how does the talent part of it then impact you guys in the sense that, you're trying to balance this thing of keeping yourselves cost efficient at the same time getting, good talent? Can you share some perspectives on that?
In the smaller cities, you can get away with lesser talented people. Your profile may not necessarily be of that and that you will desire to see across in the bigger metros, the bigger cities. But having said that, if you dress them properly, you train them properly, they may not speak the Queen's English, but as long as they can speak English, they're a great hit in that particular city. And it's more so a matter of attitude. And people who come from smaller cities, and I very strongly believe in this, not only in our industry, but even if you look at the aviation industry. Today, some of the smartest people who are delivering service, the direct interaction with the guests are from these smaller towns. Now, in some cases, it may make sense for these people to be closer to their home because that is their home, that's where they belong to. So it's not so much of a challenge in that sense. But of course, people have younger generation, they want to be upwardly mobile, you want to be in the bigger cities. But this is not so much of a challenge in that sense of finding people to go and work there. And more so because of the profile issue that I mentioned down there. Right. A person I'll hire in the front of the house in Bombay or in Mumbai, in Delhi would be very different from what I may put across in Gorakhpur. Or
Nikhil's just looking at me saying, see, this is why I say you guys should franchise, not my problem.
No, I'd like to actually, Rajesh, just speak about the big boxes first, and I'll come to cost and talent, because talent is universal whether you're franchised or managed, right? But they're all tied. 3 years ago, a prominent hotelier actually told me, big boxes, franchise, luxury, not possible. The same hotelier has actually tied up with a luxury operator in franchise, not us, unfortunate, but somebody else in the franchise space 3 years later. So the trend is definitely changing. We have a 300 room in Mumbai as we speak next to the airport, which is a franchise. It's a big box. We brought our mother brand last year, which is Wyndham, 160 keys in Ahmedabad, which is fairly a big box from an India standpoint, and
it's
not
pretty big box,
global.
yeah,
global.
from an
But
Indian
160, it's got the largest convention center in the state of Gujarat. So, and that's franchise, right? In the state of Punjab, we opened our second Wyndham, again, franchise. Big boxes are coming in, but only a certain number of cities can actually take those big boxes. Our mindset in this country is still, to answer your question, sweet spot. The actual sweet spot in the country is anywhere between 45 to 65. The average of our 50 hotels is currently 90 keys, so we are still on the higher end of the spectrum than the lower end of the spectrum, right?
Are you finding that it's, as you move along, the boxes are getting slightly bigger than what they were? I mean, is that?
There is expansion on both sides. There are more owners today ready to build big boxes because of the advice that they're getting from other players.
They're saying, we'll build 50, we might as well build 100. We're going to do this,
Case in point, we have a 300 key in Lucknow, and the owner is in dialogue with us to build another 300 key extremely close to that site. So you're talking about 600 keys in the same site on franchise with an owner, right? So like I said, the time is there, but largely the market is still between that 45, 49 with an F&B, and that's really the sweet spot. But for revenues to go up, I believe that should move up a little bit depending on, like Suhail said, the city. Just on costs, again, unprecedented, pandemic, everyone's view has changed.
You said pandemic a second, just for the record.
My bad. And I'm the one who's using it the most, right? But the reality is, the mindset for every brand, for every operator, for every owner is very, very different. Everyone is leaner, is meaner, and more nimble. Sure. So that, in 2019, we would have had a different answer. Today, we have a different answer on this panel, right? And that actually leads us to talent, because in reality, there is this debate, is there talent crunch, is there no talent crunch? We have so much of manpower available. Are they available or not? The real answer is multi-skilling and making sure that one resource multi-skills and is paid and is given appropriate leave, right? A lot of organizations actually introduced six holidays in a month at the unit level. How many of them actually enforced it?
Sure.
And which is why you see today the younger generation wanting to go to other industries and not wanting to come to hospitality. And that's something that collectively everyone in this room and outside needs to make sure that to retain talent, we actually get more of them in and give these benefits.
You touch on an interesting point that perhaps we hadn't thought about when we were having our little session on stuff we should talk about, but exactly that, right? So talent's moving in different directions. They want, the younger businesses. What are you guys doing? And maybe Suhail, you can start this time. What are you guys doing to make your businesses younger to attract that kind of talent? I mean, how are you changing it?
So I think the industry as a whole is still stuck in the Stone Ages when it comes to talent. We aren't attracting talent the top talent at least, into the industry. We as an organization have tried to get a little more tech-friendly. So introduced during the last couple of years, we've introduced a centralized HRMS, taken all our training programs online, trying to get a little more interactive with the team. But the crux of the issue is that the younger generation is not going to work 6 hours a day, 6 days in a week, and they're not even going to work your 12 hours in a day that used to happen. So unless we get out of that, it's going to be difficult to attract and to keep good talent in into the industry.
Yeah, ironically, I always used to think that hotel companies were actually the oldest tech companies in the world, even before tech was sexy. It's just that probably most of them didn't know it, or came at it a little differently once aggregation started and people were looking at aggregators, because then they took tech to a different level.
To counter you, I think the industry's always been very slow to adopt tech. When I started my training in 1999 in Oberoi, they had no Wi-Fi in the rooms. And that was the level of a 5-star luxury hotel.
Well, what I meant was more from how the international brands would operate through their websites and distribution, etc. I mean, they were the first ones to have that kind of a website and distribution, etc. So just interesting. Suhail, tell us. I realize that you operate a lot of your properties in Gujarat. So are you clustered, and does that help? I'm sure it does, but can you share some more?
So it helps a lot in terms of the sales and marketing. So because it becomes a circuit and a very good network for people traveling within the region to be assured that they've got a choice hotel within the region. So while we're clustered, yes, we do have a lot of regional presence in the west, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Goa, Rajasthan. And going forward, I think the direction has to be that you have to spread across. So any brand, when it grows, will always grow regionally first, then nationally, then internationally. So I think we're in the phase of now looking more national, and international will come later.
Sure. Since you talk about international, let's talk about that a little bit, because some of our esteemed panelists, we actually do have hotels outside of India. And I don't mean just in neighboring, of course, doesn't apply to you, Nikhil. You have hotels everywhere, but I mean for the rest of them. So Aryavir, maybe you can...
Suhail already has...
Maybe you can tell us a little bit about this international operations angle.
Sarovar has actually had an international operation for quite a while. And that began with Africa, with the city of Nairobi. That was our first engagement that we had there. And then we expanded the numbers across down there. As of now, we have one running hotel, which is in the 5D segment in Lusaka, which is top of the line property. We've just signed on day before yesterday another hotel in Kampala, in Uganda, again a great city. There are 3 greenfield projects in certain other countries in Africa. South Sudan, Juba was one, where all the wars going on. You have hotels that have been talking, they've been discussing. And we'd be in markets, of course, in Nepal. We've had now, over the last couple of years, a fair number of signings that have happened. But what shape it will eventually take, your guess is as good as mine, because running hotels in Nepal is not exactly the very easiest of things to do in the domain in where they exist. But Indian companies, I feel that... Indian companies there should largely go into markets that have greater synergy to their psyche, to their culture. For an Indian company to go into Southeast Asia and be successful there, a bit of a challenge. But for Indian companies to go, in fact, I even think that even Middle East may still also be a challenge, because you've got everybody and everybody down there. But places like Africa, by all means, I think that's the presence. Nepal, Bangladesh, of course, we have certain issues with our existing neighbor. Ceylon, in Sri Lanka, it's well-developed tourism, so whether an Indian company can go and make a difference there, my guess is not so much. But in other places, certainly.
Sure, so there's a method in it, and the thing is not to be everywhere, obviously, but there are certain areas where you do find that there is a fit, and in terms of your expansion plans going outside. You've expanded...
Sri Lanka, for that matter, is interesting, because the Indian traveler is #2 in terms of the list of travelers to Sri Lanka, and #1 in Maldives. So let's say if there was to be let's say a Clark's or a Fern or a Sarovar, maybe they're already there, I'm not sure. But I feel that they know the way we operate, they're comfortable with the Indian hospitality because the Indian traveler has certain needs which isn't that of other nations where you need a bellboy or you need certain type of food or you need a certain type of service. So I believe that having an Indianized hotel within these countries which are close by would be an added advantage. So we'll be operational in 2 months in Sri Lanka, and we're also exploring some options in Europe as well when it comes to the student and expat housing, because there's a huge dearth of rooms there, but yeah, that's a separate topic altogether.
So is that where your Amsterdam connection sort of comes in?
Yeah, that's right, because there is a huge shortage of houses for students and housing, and we believe that we can step in there and make a difference, and especially cater to the Asians coming into Europe, so they have assured accommodation. Yeah.
It's interesting, right? I mean, you see brands that were so well established overseas, having gone all over the world to bring their culture all over the world, with India having so much of an outbound impact and only growing more and more in time.
That's right. I mean, the international brands are coming to India, and I'm trying to take India to the world. So it's like,
there's definitely some merit in that. I suppose it'll all be about execution. In itself, it will be unique because you will be India overseas and nobody else will be India overseas. So
that's right.
In itself, that's always going to be interesting to look at. Well, we have some questions, thankfully, because we were wondering when those would come up. So if we could have them up on the screen here, that'd be great. All right. Question from Anonymous. Any challenges specific to the mid-market segment of hotels? Hey, that was one of my questions, but okay, fine, fair. We'll take it now. So, what's your biggest challenge? Each one of you, I think that would be helpful to know.
So, in the mid-market segment, I think our largest challenge is definitely talent. There are a few in smaller cities, you have a few advantages. One is that you have a less competitive environment, so you're normally the king of the hill in those cities. And you do have also a very strong F&B inclination because there aren't many standalone restaurants that are there, so you get much more footfall in food and beverage in smaller cities.
Is that a challenge though? Is that a challenge though?
No, the biggest challenge, and as far as I see, the only challenge really is the talent. To get the same quality talent that you would get in a big metro city or a bigger hotel, you can't afford the same kind of talent in small mid-scale hotels.
There could be an opportunity in that too, because this whole idea of moving from formal educational to vocational training is huge, and I think that's something that is really where, if I may say, the folk are not necessarily focused on going through a formal education process and are maybe less particular about being in tech-heavy jobs, but still would serve very well in this area. So yeah, but talent, I guess, is one area. Nikhil?
So absolutely, just the way you said, we have to change our specifications. We can't be in smaller cities recruiting from IHMs. They're not going to join you. We have to do vocational. We have to create curriculum that is suited to the hotels today.
Nikhil, challenge? One challenge?
Rajesh, just before that, you made a comment that we are in almost everywhere. We're only in 96 countries. My colleague Panos, who's in the room, has been to 112 countries. So Wyndham still has a few more countries to spread its wings in. That said, I would say I think there's a big opportunity and not really a challenge for the industry to adopt sustainable tourism. It's extremely important for us not only to speak about it, but to start implementing it. India has scarcity of water in the hills, and it's not that hotels don't do it, they are adopting it, but I think we need to do more, and we need to adopt that more and make sure even the independent hotels who are not part of the larger chain are part of that change, and that for the industry as such is a big challenge and a huge opportunity.
Right. Mansoor, one challenge, your biggest challenge.
I would completely go by what Suhail mentioned, that in the midst, the only challenge you have is getting people of the profile that you want. But where there's a will, there's a way. Training is the way to do so. You still have to run the hotels. You have to run it with the people that you have. And training addresses that to a good extent. But yes, if you're going with the expectation that somebody is going to speak the Queen's English, then your expectations may be slightly misplaced. But I think people also understand when they go there that what they would expect. As long as they're attired properly, they're groomed properly, they're following hygienic conditions, their whole way of interacting with the people is professional, I don't think it becomes such a big issue. And training is the issue, but that's quite doable.
Aryavir, what keeps you up at night?
Pretty much covered it all, but I could say that maybe owner relations with the mid-market owner in a tier 2 market would be a little more difficult to deal with than to deal with a, let's say, a 50-room hotel in Delhi, because, you know, the mindset is a bit different. But yeah, I think I've kind of, yeah.
Okay. There's an interesting question up there. The question's flipping around a little bit, but I think, yeah, there it is. In India specifically, does customer loyalty exist in the mid-market segment, or is it just the best price?
I'll take that.
Yeah, please do.
I think it does. And I am saying this primarily based on experience per se. In our company, we have a loyalty program. I wouldn't say it's a great loyalty program to match the international ones, but yes, certainly. And it doesn't come so much from a loyalty program per se. That's certainly a value add. But if it relates to the brand, if it relates to the product, that in itself is a loyalty. We keep getting time and again certain comments. Leave the hotels across apart. They say, you know, when we go to any Sarovar hotels, one thing we know is we'll get good food there. Now, you know, hotels and you know, we are just a single outlet. We're not running multiple restaurants. But the very fact that you hear that it's good food, it's quite pleasing to your ears. So to that extent, customer loyalty comes in.
I have a little anecdote to share actually, which you might find interesting. I didn't mention this to you when we were chatting, but I can say it up here because it's interesting. I was in Bangalore a couple of weeks ago, and as all of us know, Bangalore, like most of the big cities over here, you want to be or you want to stay where your work is. Otherwise, you'll never reach where you need to reach, right? Because it's just traffic and various other things, etc. And it was a very last-minute trip, and some booking stuff didn't quite work out. The only other hotel that was around was actually a Sarovar hotel near the Martahali area. And it was, the moment I saw a room on an OTA, so I didn't go to the Sarovar site, to be honest, because, it's, you know, I mean, when you need variety, you need to go to an aggregator, right? But the moment I saw it and there was one room available, I literally, that was it, because you know that, you know, the brand stands for something, and you know, you guys have been established for a long time, so you know that you get what you need to get, you know, for a night.
We call that sort of an equivalent of a loyalty. It may not be a program per se, but yes, the brand recollect, and if there is any element of faith, then it does become positive of anything else.
Customer loyalty exists definitely, especially when it comes to our brand, because we've been operating for 75 years. You know, I've had numerous instances where they've told us that, you know, my father got married at Clark's, or my uncle got married at Clark's way back in 1947 or 48. So I believe that has kind of transpired even into the tier 2 market, especially in the banqueting and the wedding aspect, that, you know, getting married at a Clark's is something which is, so yes, I would say that customer loyalty is a very large part of why we're successful. Yeah.
Rajesh, 95 million users, 4 million very active Indian users. So loyalty is very much present and only growing. Just to put the loyalty piece at rest, and allow me to just expand on this, right?
Okay.
Best price is very different today. With the leisure markets and the ADRs most brands have seen have doubled and tripled compared to 2019. Case in point, Ramada, Udaipur used to retail at anywhere between 6,500, 7,000. Today, you'd be lucky to get a room at 18,000. Mussoorie, Kasauli, I could go on and on. Kasauli at 20,000 rupees a night in a place in Kasauli. I mean, it's a kasbah. It's not even a town, right? Mussoorie, 20,000, 25,000. And I'm not talking about social events on those days. I'm talking about a regular room. So the sensitivity of price in the leisure market is very different to the business. And that's where I would differentiate the best price today, because customers are willing to spend, and willing to spend like you did with the brand.
Fair enough.
As I was sharing with you the experience of Mashobra, decently located hotel, Mashobra everybody knows, but fine, it used to do sort of an average. when this problem happened across there, probably shot up like this. Nobody did nothing. If somebody says, the operator made this difference, nothing, is the same hardware, it's the same service, the same people. And you just said, listen, price yourself high, and you went on taking yourself higher and higher and higher, and you couldn't get a room for the love of Mike. He's bang on. They'll call you up and say, do you think we can? And not say that, get us a room, do you think we can?
It's like a ration shop. I mean, I get calls, can you get me one room in Mussoorie on the weekend? And we actually can't give rooms because the hotel is minus. And this, I'm just giving 2 examples, but multiple markets, multiple cities, multiple destinations.
Is this a more recent phenomena because of the revenge travel, post-COVID,
that is true.
leisure?
True, yeah.
I mean,
As long as
we're
it's
sitting here
multiple
next year,
and-
this
yeah.
time, right? And is it going to be the same situation where somebody's calling you saying, I can't get a room in Mussoorie, or
800 million,
or will that same customer
800
be...
million Indians under the age of 30, right? Even with international travel opening up, I only see it benefiting not only domestic travel, but international travel, because not everyone's going to go international. And when they do, that middle class is first going to go to the Dubai and the Singapores of the world, but they have now experienced a newer India and are willing to spend in that newer India. And that campaign of Incredible India is actually taking shape domestically more than internationally. So that's where I see, and I see growth, phenomenal growth on both sides.
Fair enough. Suhail, you get to pick the next question. Do you see them?
Before we get to the next question, just I would like clearly draw a distinction in the last question on loyalty. So loyalty definitely exists, but we have to draw a distinction between loyalty and loyalty programs. So it's not that the loyalty in mid-scale hotels is driven through loyalty programs. It's driven through loyalty, yes, but a lot of the choice is driven through your price, your location, and convenience of the customer.
Sure. Great. Pick a question, any question.
Sure. Should we get to the fees?
No, I think one question that I see there, I think the font has gone a little smaller for some reason.
Should we catch the one for Nikhil?
It talks across about the MICE business and going into when it came to the room size. I think, Nikhil, that question mentioned your name.
Yeah, I can take that. So typically, most hotels, and everyone will qualify, even if it's a 45-room hotel, has huge banquets, has huge gardens. So they're not missing on the social piece. They may be missing on the corporate piece, and that is when operators like us come in, who have the expertise, who have the brand, who have the RFP, and so on and so forth. So if there are any independent owners out there looking to partner, please meet me backstage. Thank you.
Putting in the money when the size that you would make of the hotel is good on paper to talk about that I'm making a futuristic hotel, but at the end of the day, there's a capital that's deployed, and there's a cost to that capital. Now, whether the location in which you're going has the capacity to be able to absorb that in the current market scenario, because the one who's put the money out and has got to service the debt, he's going to pretty much look at what can I do. So a lot of people are actually now going across into a stage where they can keep adding across to the inventory. But to overcreate the inventory, and like a child becomes a father one day, your C and B tier cities as perceived will actually end up becoming cities that are very close to what A. I'll give you a case, an example, Dehradun. I used to travel to that city when my son was in school to go and meet up with him. There was only one hotel called President Hotel, which there was a clamor for it, and it was, you'd know better because he's on from there. There was a clamor for the hotel because, that's where all the DOSCOs, their parents used to go and stay because the food was very good. Today, there is no dearth of rooms as far as Dehradun is concerned because so much of capacity, including Hyatt, has opened, all the branded hotels have come in, and I think going forward, there'll be far more bigger hotels, but that's how the city has changed in the last 1 decade. And likewise, Gorakhpur is a case, an example. When we said we were doing a hotel in Gorakhpur, that's not too back future in time. A big mall, flourishing mall, people spending money, you look at the number of foreign cars in those cities, it's unbelievable. So that's how things will change. But you will have to start creating capacity based across on where the demand perception is going to be. Yes, if the future says that some big IT is going to come in, they've taken large spaces, then you would go with that format.
Okay, let's take this question. What percentage of bookings come through OTAs at a portfolio level? Kind of average. You want to start this way down, Aryavir?
Really
give a range, you don't have to.
I would say anywhere between 20 to 40%.
30 to 40?
20 to 40%, I would say. Yeah.
And growing. The influence of the OTAs, and I don't know if the others will share that same thought as myself, what we've observed, and I wouldn't use the P word, so I'll keep that out of it, but what we observed is that the bookings coming in through the OTA channels have increased significantly, going on an average of almost 35–40%, in certain locations even topping 60+ percentage, because that's the way it was being route. And the worrisome factor for the hoteliers was, and I hope that changes across in the next few months or perhaps in the year, is that even corporates who were actually contracted with you at certain rates started following the OTA routes. Of course, I've got my old colleague Noshir sitting here and other people who are much more intrinsically in-depth on it, but I think we're all facing the same problem of the corporate movement and those bookings coming through the OTA channels. That's a worry for all of us. And we hope that sort of settles down at some level, but the importance and significance and clout of the OTA, hotel companies will not be able to manage so easily.
Yeah, it's a great thing.
And Nikhil, what about your perspective, given the fact that you have your own very powerful engine as well? Give us that perspective, which will be unique to you.
So, what's really happened in India and in the last 2 years, the digital adoption and the digital payments is a game changer. Globally, we are the largest digital payment country because of the UPI app, right? And I just want to speak a little bit about that, and because it ties into the whole OTA digital piece. The adoption of people wanting to go online and book online has only increased, right? So, and that is something that we should also speak about, that the number of people booking in 2019 vis-a-vis 2021 online is far greater, A. B, has the pie increased? Yes, the pie is increased because a lot of people were on OTAs and on corporate websites. Now, just in case of Wyndham, we said, you know, our hotels have always been clean, and every brand has always had clean hotels, right? We only did what McDonald's did. We made it more visual. We put more signage out there, i.e. re-ensuring the trust of the customer into the brand. And that's why the brand in the last 2 years has started moving up. And we personally saw a decline in the OTA bookings that were happening. But have they declined, and has the brand increased substantially? No, I would say it's 50-50 in some cities, it's 80-60 in some cities. So from an OTA perspective, I would say anywhere between 15 to 20% on an average.
Okay, so even in your situation, unquestionably important factor, right, Suhail?
It's the ecosystem. You thrive together, you grow together.
Sure.
It's not them versus us. We all grow together.
Okay, so just a number, what percentage? And then
on a portfolio basis, we do 31% of our business from OTAs, and total online volume is 37%. That's actually down from a pre-COVID level. At a pre-COVID level, our total online business was close to 40%. The reason it's down is because the RFP movement, which used to be a large amount of volume that was available pre-COVID, that hasn't come back yet. And that we expect back this year.
Okay.
The GDS movement.
It's an interesting question up there, which we can take. It says, do mid-market hotels perform better in locations with higher positioned hotels, which are more expensive? So if you're in an expensive city, or if you're in a destination which has no luxury assets, does it matter, I suppose is the question. Like, is there a perception that, okay, you're in a city which has a lot of luxury assets, and therefore it's a higher priced city, and therefore your mid-market hotels also get the benefit of that?
So again, here I think it would be location specific. I think if it's a leisure destination,
demand, right?
if it's a leisure destination, having a luxury asset to pull up that leisure market in totality is very good for us. Okay,
right.
Because it helps pull the rates up in the destination and really drives that business over there. So leisure destination, it's a big plus. In a city, it makes no difference.
Yeah, I think
Any other
market
perspectives? Yeah.
definitely.
Inverted pyramid, no, Rajesh. India has always had luxury hotels rather than mid-market and economy. So traditionally,
Not
we've
anymore.
grown the other way compared to
Sure.
the West. or even China for that matter,
Sure.
right? So we've had an inverted pyramid in this case.
Completely agree. We sort of, our pyramid was very different. It wasn't base up, it was up, down, and I think that's what makes us the Heartland. The Heartland Hotel is the name of our band. I'm not going to forget that. That's great. Would you be templatizing the F&B segment that is generally an amenity for the hotel? Is this a room-only business model? Let's talk a little bit about F&B, banqueting, everything related to that in this question. It's good to know that you guys have got some big boxes. I'll use that as a general term, 150 rooms plus coming up, 300, 500, we heard different numbers. But in the average size hotel that you have, how are you looking at F&B? How are you looking at banqueting? Is the fact that your boxes are a little smaller, is that a problem with tier 2, tier 3 markets that have a lot of banqueting business and weddings? And do you guys find that you might be losing out? What's your approach overall in this space?
Yeah, weddings have been an integral part of our growth in terms of having hotels which have, so we target hotels which have a banquet space, because even if it's a small inventory, you know that you're going to get a wedding, especially if it's a hotel, a city which doesn't have many branded hotels. I mean, people would want to do their children's wedding in that hotel. So yes, the F&B segment is extremely vital to our sustenance. And the room-only business isn't, it's I would say, again, it's city-oriented. I mean, in the sense that if you have a city hotel with a large banqueting space, and yeah, people would want to do weddings there. So yeah, definitely.
I think from the F&B space now, people start looking at F&B and banquets as two separate revenue streams, because banquets and your standard F&B, your restaurant, have not got no correlation. That is, your restaurant is largely dependent on in-house, and if you're in a smaller city, then you have non-resident business. But banquets, irrespective of what, is a completely more comprehensive game. And more, even if the key inventory is small, 45, 50 rooms also, but you've got large across of open spaces, a lot of people are doing that, and more than reasonably successfully, because normally in an average year, you get from between 80 to 100 special sire dates that you can get in. It's an opportunity for you to be able to recover a lot of money. People in smaller cities know a lot of people, so you have much larger number of people who come, and they're willing to pay the sort of money. I'm not saying they'll pay you 3,000 or 4,000 rupees per pax, but they will pay you decent money for you to more than make money on that part. So these two will have to be looked at separately, in as much as your production facility may be common. But to say that how F&B would be doing, it will get masked, because where you got high amount of banqueting business, your F&B will look very good. The restaurant may actually not be doing so well. That's my own experience.
I second what Mansoor is saying, actually. Separate the restaurant business and actually compete with the high street restaurants. That's, I think, where hotels really need to adapt. Even online delivery, a lot of hotels have still not adapted to online delivery. It's just another source. You have your kitchen, you have your chefs sitting idle. Please utilize them, right? That's one piece. On the banquet side, I think we've all evolved. We've all got better quality and taken the APC higher. So F&B for us, for example, is moved from 40% to 50% and was actually the backbone in the unprecedented times, and made sure that it filled the rooms, because smaller groups of 20 people, 30 people were coming in and wanting to do family functions and actually staying in the hotel. So it became a filler and not the other way around.
Sure. So, we have just a couple of minutes before we wrap up, and I'd like to just, touch upon your outlook and your growth trajectory a little bit, because that in itself is the proof of the pudding. You guys are all growing pretty quick from what I understand. You're all asset light, which means, obviously this works, because there are people building hotels and getting you guys to come and manage or franchise them only more and more. So share a little bit about your growth and that outlook. I mean, and I think that helps us sort of round it off nicely. Suhail, why don't you go?
Sure. So we've got 27 hotels in the pipeline.
Right.
8 hotels that will open further this year, so that will take our tally to 96. We are expanding primarily in the Zinc brand as well. We've got 2 hotels that will open in the next quarter in the Zinc brand. And going forward, I think there is a slight pivot to doing the revenue share model. I think I'm finding that model quite attractive, and it's a win-win for both the developer as well as the operator.
So you're getting close to the heels of about 100 hotels with your pipeline is where you're at, yeah?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Nikhil, what about you guys in India?
So firstly, pure play franchise and third party. That's the model that
Sure.
we continue to operate and expand. We've got 29 signed future pipeline, so that's 50 plus 29. Yesterday, my boss on stage said 100 by 2025, and that's what we are going to achieve by
Yeah, you
2025.
seem to be on a good wicket to get there. Mansoor, you guys have been at
Getting
it.
that
We
century.
stand at 97 as of date. We hoped that we would have crossed the number 100, but last month, 3 of the agreements they
Next
expired.
week.
The
Next
tenure.
week. You'll be there next week.
I
I know
don't
you
know,
will, the way you
but
guys
that's there are about 42 as of this point of time in different stages of brownfield to greenfield projects that are signed on. If nothing else, I would say that at least 80% of them should fructify across into hotels. A good large number of them will come in 2023, but this year also should see about at least 7 to 8 of those, and any additional ones that come on way. So I think that way, as far as the hotels are concerned, numbers are concerned, it's good. There will be a lot of focus across on the franchising part of it, especially the Golden Tulip, Royal Tulip, and Tulipin brands, and that's where the future is going to take on.
Nice. Aryavir?
Yeah, so we, as I mentioned earlier, 65 operational hotels, 25 signed, in different stages of completion, in different markets. We are in the revenue share, lease, ownership, management model. Although revenue share, as Suhail mentioned, is becoming more popular because hotel owners have realized that they can, probably make more out of the hotel if it's a revenue share and you have an assured higher return. So
It's great news all around. You guys are all getting to that 100 hotels mark. You guys are growing quickly, very busy, very nimble, flexible, given where you all come from. So wish you all the very best. And thanks for being here. I think that's just about time up for us. And I think we took as many of the questions as we could, but feel free to get in touch with any of these gentlemen for other questions you have. I'm sure they'll be hanging around. Thanks for coming by and being great audience, asking all these questions. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank
It's
you.
been a delightful audience.
thanks,
I
Rajesh.
never expected so much of us. Thank you.